Hey, this is the Prophet with Nick Black. It's time to chit chat. You know nothing about blockchain. We here to fix that. You want the news on them new stocks? This where you get that. So go and grab you a nice chair. It's time to sit back and talk to Prophet. Hey, hey, you talking to the Prophet? Hey, hey. We talking condos and nice clothes and driving Lambos. I remember them night codes, we couldn't stand those. We tried to drive on them high roads, but had to stay low. Now there's solutions to hard bills we couldn't pay for. I talked to Profit to get some profit.
Kind of crazy day. Everybody that has been watching these markets, their nose might be bleeding a little bit. Hopefully it's bleeding in a good way. Nothing goes up and to the right forever. So don't let these days get you down when you have down days. Down days are healthy, down days are needed, and down days let you buy your options back that you sold, especially in Bitcoin. So if that's your game, and I know many of you it is, then yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk a little bit about leverage, but the main thing we're going to address, maybe the elephant in the room, which is indirectly what's going on with Cardano. Is this pre-Goguen panic? Okay. Is this just a little bit of hype because the whole place is kind of green? Could be. Is this because of the little birdie comment, meaning a potential deal with Twitter? I don't personally think so, but we're going to discuss it. And it's not completely unreasonable, the deal with Twitter and Cardano. And we'll go into that here in just a bit. Let me say hello to everyone first, then we'll do the semblance of a little pre-show infographics. That's pretty cool. So let me see what's going on here. Let me say hello to everyone. 833avoidcourtroom.com. You know what? I think you just got a promotion there, buddy. Nice one. Let's see. Viewer Low, what's going on? Biotech Breakout. Big Ain J, what's up? P. Kelly, not the Trillist. I like that one. Scott RH, Jimmy James, Expat Matt, Barno, what's going on? BP Brother, Scorpzion, Girl Pilot, Cabeza de Termo. I like saying Spanish things. I like rolling my R's. So many people can't roll their R's. It's an unrespected sport, rolling of the R's. If you go to a Mexican restaurant, you roll your R's. Your food's not getting spit in. They like you. You can roll your R's. Everybody likes you. Crypto Noob, what's going on? Campbell Soup Kids. Brie Learns. It's probably not Brell Arns. So I'm guessing it's Brie Learns. Sometimes you have to do this on the fly. JJ Johnny, what's going on? Crypto Noob. I think I already did Crypto Noob. JR80. Texan Stakes, our favorite stake pool for Cardano. So what's going on? Over here on, we got YouTube working again. We just had to make a new channel, and they basically F'd me out of like 5,000 videos. That's fine. Doesn't matter. I don't really care what YouTube does because YouTube is who? Tube. Andrew, what's going on, buddy? Brady, what's going on? Demayan, what's going on? Over here in Clubhouse, if you're watching, is a parallel. So this is a live show that we're shooting out to Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, Periscope, theta.tv. And if you're watching on Theta TV, it's theta.tv/Nick Black. And if you watch it, you get paid to watch it. Let me say hello to Antonio, to Corey, to Alexander, Dorian, Ray, Lori, James, Leon, Mike, Nara, Rachel, Charnice. And if I butcher your name, that's what I do. I butcher names. Nick, Josh, my man. Sil, Dion, what's going on, buddy? Michaela, Kenny, Joshua, Nathan. What's up, Nathan? Mano, Matthew, what's up? And don't think I'm ignoring anyone. If I don't bring you up to stage, it's because there's really no point, because this is kind of an ancillary to the show. So don't think I saw you, Matthew. There's no point because we're not really engaging so much yet with the Clubhouse. We're going to try to do some cool things with merging Clubhouse with the show, but I think there's like some rules about that. And they're like, you can't record anything because it's dickish or whatever. So we'll figure that out. Expat, what's going on? Kimmy, good to see you. T, Kelly, David, Shay, JD, Musad, what's going on, buddy? Marco, Lil Gaines in the house. Hula, Joseph, Kwasi, William, Alex, Carlos, Ghostin. Wait, I got to get the full name. Ghostin Hofarda, what's up? Eric, Jet, Shay Day, Anthony. Okay, I think we pretty much nailed it. Right. Fern Like Prism, what's going on? Demayan, what's going on? I will see you guys in about 30 seconds. Let me roll these little graphics so that the money that I spent on those graphics doesn't feel like I completely lit it on fire. And we will be back and we will talk about all of this crazy stuff. And we're going to talk about the 3 things it takes to have a functional blockchain-based decentralized social network. And I think this is important as we move forward, as you guys try to evaluate projects, because this is coming. NFTs, it's the cool thing right now, but AI and AI managed platforms is also coming. And I think that's a bigger story than taking baseball cards and slapping an Ethereum token against it. So we will be right back, and I will see you. What is going on for everybody over at Theta TV? Good to see you guys. I'm glad that, and when I say guys, that's just the generalized term. I certainly don't mean to insult anyone's pronouns. I don't know what your pronouns are. Fucking nobody knows what pronouns are anymore. You basically verbally assault people when you assume that they are what you assume they are. I guess we should stop assuming everything. Assume nothing. It's like we live in the Matrix, but only without all the cool guns. International AO, what's going on? Let's go through prices really quick. Let's talk about what's going on. So Bitcoin, 44,640. It has had a bit of a sell-off. It's down 4% on the day. It's up 21.5% on the week. That's the Elon bid. It's up 45% on the 30-day. These kind of numbers you don't see in other markets. And again, I contend that this is not a bull market. I contend that these are the effects, what you would call network effects, kind of these quantifiable effects when new big giant piles of money and liquidity enter a space. And so I would just urge everyone to take a step back. And when you hear people saying, well, this bull cycle or that bull cycle, I think that's bull S, because we don't know what bull and bear markets really are going to look like. Yes, the market can go up and it can go down, and there's hype and whimsy. But this isn't a saturated market yet. These aren't real markets. The last asset class was in the late 1600s, the last new asset class, okay? And most of us weren't here then. You know, maybe Corey was here, but everybody else was not here. And so you think, okay, what did that mean? Well, the English declared war on France, and they needed a way to finance that. And that's back when money, like when you didn't have money in a bank account, you couldn't do stupid stuff. So they said, well, you know what? Let's finance the war. So they created the war bond. That was the first time. That's the beginning of the bond market. And that's a big deal, because that's the last time we've seen a brand new asset class. Now, we've seen markets, right? But the internet wasn't an asset class. The tech boom was innovation, but it wasn't a new asset class, right? So we don't know what this looks like. And my contention is, and no one knows an exact number or they'd have all the money, but I believe that until this is a fully formed market where most financial products that could possibly tokenize have tokenized as a way to reduce frictions and reduce fees and all of these little kind of uncomfortable dislocations in pricing. For instance, think about the equity market. If you could simply take the equity market this second and you could tokenize all of that equity, you would do two things pretty quickly. One, settlement, right? Settlement would happen very fast. Right now, settlement can be anywhere from 3 to, I think in some cases, 5 days. It's 2 to 3 days in the FX market. So think about that. Forget equities for a second, which is, upward of, 10 to 30 trillion, depending on how you look at derivative exposure and stuff. Think about the FX, the settlement markets for currencies across the world, and all of these swaps that occur between governments, and then between traders is kind of a small part of it, but mostly between governments and businesses looking to do international business and how they move in and out of currencies. Settlement time there is 2 to 3 days, sometimes more, but two to 3 days. That's 2 to 3 days of slippage risk, right? And what's slippage risk? Well, let's say I do a deal, me and Corey go into a deal. Corey's in China, I'm here in the States. I'm trading my currency units for his currency units, but it takes 3 days to settle. At the end of that 3 days, the exchange rate, it's either going to be beneficial to him because he got my currency units cheaper, or it's going to be beneficial to me because I got more of his currency units, right? for the swap. But it's very rare that markets stay flat for 3 days straight, or even 2 days straight, or even 20 minutes, right? So you have this whole kind of subculture in banks where people just manage and hedge slippage risk between currency swaps. You can build a whole career doing it. And you think, wow, that's a whole industry based on the fact that it's inefficient to settle a simple thing like currency swaps. And for those of you that are screaming like XRP, mofo, yeah, maybe, right? I'm not going to S on XRP. It could assist. Matter of fact, my contention is that's where Ripple should have gone. I think that's the lower hanging fruit. I think they could have gone in and they could have settled FX swaps. They could have been the agency that sits in between. They could have solved that problem. And I don't believe they'd be in trouble right now. Maybe Brad and Chris would get slapped for doing stupid stuff, but the Ripple, the company, wouldn't be stuck in this gamey mess. So who is making strides right now? Well, when we get down to token number 12, we would talk about XLM. And when we talk about XLM, it's important to realize that they just did a pretty big deal with the South Asian Pacific community, in that 70% of that community is unserved by SWIFT, like period. Like you literally cannot get currency units into those areas. So they just signed a deal that they believe will result in the Stellar Foundation together with the Interstellar Foundation. And the more you dig, the more you find some very interesting things. But just the basics of it is they think that they'll be moving about 50 billion a year just through that one corridor on top of Stellar. Now, if you guys know a little bit about Stellar, it's not specific to XLM, the currency. You can move any currency across Stellar. Did you guys know you can move any currency across the XRP ledger? Again, make sure you have all the facts. When you guys are trying to price, when you're trying to value and price these things, you want to make sure you have all the facts. If you find yourself in an echo chamber, get out. Go look around. Go take a look around. Anyway, yeah. Let me say hi to Kelly. Let me say hi to Stress Relief. Man, what a cool name. Hey, Stress Relief. I'm sure they're like, hey, what's up? Philippe, what's going on, buddy? Lum WS, Oscar Pino, what's going on? Ogrely, that's a badass name. I like Ogrely. I wish I had invented that name. I'm going to copyright it before you can. Chaotum, like chaos, like chaos. All right. Crypto Vixen 21, what's going on? Girl Pilot, hello. Belinda, hello. Okay. So Bitcoin is down a little bit. Let's get back to Bitcoin. It took a pretty good move upward, really fast, kind of nose jerk. Nose jerk? Can you nose jerk? Nosebleed? Knee jerk? Nosebleed? Yep. Well, when you want to look at what the effects of this are inside corporate balance sheets, you can't really until you study the futures markets. So what happens in the futures markets is this. One, companies can get a bunch of leverage, but you have to look at the futures market like a pure commodities market. Essentially where farmers would have gone to pre-sell their commodities, and where a producer or manufacturer might come to pre-purchase wheat, right? If they're making cereal flakes or, corn pops. Corn is probably the best cereal ever made. It's corn pops. But anyway, so what happens is the farmer comes to the futures market and he says, based on the contract, I'm estimating I'm going to have about this much wheat this season. So I'm going to pre-sell a certain portion of it so that I can pay for all of the little doodads and tractors and seeds and humans that work for me, keep the lights on. And on the other side of the equation, you have somebody taking the other side of that bet. So he's pre-selling. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, he's going short. No, he's not going short. He's protecting his business. He's paying bills. And then you have people on the other side, the manufacturer who makes the wheat flakes, the wheat cereal flakes, Wheaties. We'll call it Wheaties, right? I don't know if they have that cereal yet, but it's a good name. And so they make the Wheaties. So they need to buy a certain amount of grain and they need to lock in that price because they need price stability to be able to pass down to the consumer a consistent, price information. They can't pivot the way gas companies do. If you went and every time you went and looked at cereal, it was $4 higher, $2 lower, you just check out. You'd be like, nope, I'll eat malto meal or some other stupid crap. So there's two sides to these futures contracts. And then there's this other side, and that's the speculators that take on ridiculous leverage. They go online and they do trading programs where they have 4, little lines that they look at that allow them to, winnow everything in the market. And that gets into a whole thing about, kind of flawed psychology and the idea that what happened in the past 3 months or 3 minutes is going to dictate what happens forward. David, for those of you, I don't know if many of you probably know David. He had a funny tweet. He said, we always look, he says, the future is forward looking, but we always look backward, right? Well, we're measuring our lives by looking backwards. And then we just flip that around and think that that's forward looking. Well, in the futures markets, when you have a bunch of speculators, one thing that they mostly miss, and especially new entrants into that market, is that these contracts roll over. Not only do they reprice every single 24 hours, but you have the forward month contracts that roll into place. And if there's a price disparity, it just gets grinded away out of your contract. You don't get the difference. So as an example, if the current price of wheat is $10 and the forward contract is $13, you don't get those $3. When that contract rolls over, it just becomes $13 and they make the adjustment to the contracts. You didn't just make 30%, right? So that's understanding contango, and then backwardation, where maybe the contract is $10, the forward contract is $8. Now some leverage can make you some money. So you just have to be careful. Most ETFs pivot off of the 24-hour changing price in the futures market. And so people forget the whole idea of this rollover. So if you want to really understand futures and have an idea of what's going on, even in Bitcoin futures, now in Ethereum futures, you need to understand contango and backwardation. Those are the 2 things you need to look up. And if you do, you're going to go, oh shit, this is a lot more complex than I thought. And it's not exactly intuitive. And right now I feel, and just be careful because there's a lot of, well, let's just say there's a lot of areas, even on this platform, if you're on Clubhouse, there's a lot of areas where you might enter a room and everybody has a trading program or a special whatever. And I would just be very careful. Unless you really understand these markets, you're very liable to trade away everything you have. In the futures market, you can lose more than you start with, right? I don't know if people realize that either. When you buy an option or sell an option, when you buy an option, it's limited to the amount of premium you paid. It expires worthless or it expires in the money, A or B, right? It's a zero-sum game. Cool. In the futures market, you may have to deliver that asset. And if you have to deliver it and you've lost an incomprehensible amount of money, it ain't pretty. So anyway, that gets into another discussion of when you are pricing futures. And remember, the futures market and the options market are both derivatives, but they are 2 different markets. The futures markets are where people get this ridiculous leverage, sometimes up to 500 to 1 leverage. On Binance alone, you can get 125x leverage. Peeps, no one here needs 125x leverage on this whole sketchy space. It's incredibly crazy. Texan Stakes asks, question, thoughts to avoid cap gains tax. When you are ready to take profits, what about spending in that crypto? I'm researching tools like Cody that will let you purchase with a variety of crypto assets. What I would say is, for now, obviously consult your accountant, because your accountant is always going to have the best information, and you have someone to blame if you violate the tax code, right? If you do your own taxes, then you don't have anybody to blame. Pay the money, drop some cash to the dude, and have someone to blame. Okay. Second, you can borrow your way out, meaning you can use Salt Lending or BlockFi or any of these places like Corey was talking about earlier, where you can fire up a loan against your digital assets that collateralize that loan. Now you have to look and say, wow, do I want to pay 5, 6, 7%? That is a lot, but that may be better than the tax implications. If you're going to take those funds and redeploy them in an investment of some kind, and you better know what you're doing. I certainly would never tell anyone to go take on leverage and then go give it a shot in some other market, like take on a bunch of leverage against your Bitcoin and go do something stupid and get nuked in the real world, and then they just liquidate your account when Bitcoin goes down by 20%. In 2017, and again, this is not 2017, but just bear in mind, Bitcoin can retrace 38% and double the next day. It's done it 7 times in 2018 alone. It was like the next day, is over the next week, right? There was 7 retracements of between 30 and 38%. 3 of them were 38%. You say, wow, that's crazy. And so what happens when the whole market goes red and we're down 20%, 25%? Everybody fucking panics, right? I don't care who you are. You kind of, you're a little bit uncomfortable. You're like, what if that was it? What if we got this wrong? But that mentality is flawed thinking, because that's panic, right? That's irrational thinking. That is what people call fear, uncertainty, and doubt. FUD. FUD is not fake. FUD doesn't mean it's a lie. And I see this getting, butchered too, where people are like, oh, that's just FUD. No, if it's just FUD, that means it's some piece of news that creates fear, uncertainty, and doubt. If you hear that your neighbor is murdering your other neighbors, a certain amount of FUD is reasonable. If the other neighbor comes over and is like, Margaret's murdered 14 people this week, that's not fucking FUD, right? That's reasonable, right? It's not a lie. So just be careful that we don't get kind of blasted with these terms, and when the markets are selling off, people panic. It's very natural. You start to question your decision making. However, that's flawed too. You made the decision to if you're in the market, to purchase the assets that you purchased with a calm mind. Hopefully you had a clear head. You weren't smoked on roofies like my grandma, right? My insolvent grandma. You weren't strung out on meth like grandma. You had a clear mind. You did your research. You bought assets, or you invested in assets that you feel comfortable with, either as a trade, less than a year, or an investment, something you would hold for 3 years. In my opinion, this is just how I do it. A year or more, right? And so when you hold those assets and the market sells off and you are dollar cost averaging, that means you're purchasing on a regular basis. You're not throwing all of your money at the asset that you like, even if you like it. I have a lot of my clients that are continuing to dollar cost average into Bitcoin, still into Ethereum, which is a great trade. Cardano, not so much XRP, Polkadot, XLM for sure right now. I think they're going to catch a lot of the money that is getting left on the sidelines from XRP and from Ripple. Cosmos, Theta, Neo, VeChain, go down the list, Near, right? And so it's okay if the prices sell off. You buy in little bitty bits along an extended period of time, and guess what? Then you don't get depressed. When the price goes down, you're happy because you're going to get more with your next purchase. When the price goes up, you're happy because you already got more. So dollar cost averaging takes a lot of the panic psychology out of the markets. Good sell-offs are healthy, right? If something just goes up and to the right indefinitely, you start to panic a little bit, like, wait, when is it going to end? And the psychology starts to shift. And then you get sell-offs that are much less based on the actual fundamentals of the project and more just based on humans trying to front run other humans. It becomes a greater fool race, right? And that's not what you want to be involved in, because back to my contention, and again, this is just one dude out of a bunch of dudes in the crypto space. I've made most of my gains. Leroy and I, we look at these assets from different perspectives, but we've both done really well because at the end of the day, we're just driven by logic and not emotion. You really have to separate the emotion from this space, or you'll get nuked and you'll watch everyone else go by you, and all they did is simply buy the top 10 assets and just sit there. For a lot of people, that's probably a good strategy. But you need to know why you own these things, and you need to look at this market, I think, and look at it and say, these are network effects. This is new money coming into the space. We don't have a fully formed market yet. We will. It's coming at some point. We'll have a fully formed market. Then we'll have business cycles. And the more institutional investment in crypto means the more relationship that the digital asset space will have to the greater equity space and the bond market and to these business cycles. Why? Because most of these people that work at these different institutions, they still have to show profits. They still have to answer to board of directors. They still have to answer to their shareholders. Someone at the end of the day is saying, did you make me money? Well, maybe. So what do? They start booking profits. They have all these kind of, normal processes of managing a balance sheet. And they sell their winners because they don't want to be overweight. It's okay. I just urge everyone here, Brady and I, for those of you that don't know Brady, he's not on Clubhouse, oddly enough, but Brady has been a member of the community for a long time. And Brady says a lot of very interesting things on Twitter. And at first glance, you're like, well, he's rambling, but he's not rambling. Brady asks a lot of questions. And those questions make you think, why am I in this space? And about macro as well. Am I looking at things the wrong way? Right? And sometimes just simply pivoting the way you look at a problem. You want to, one of the things that I always used to do, if I really hated a project, but it was a competitor, I bought it because it forces me to go learn what I own. I'm like, right? I used to be all in Ethereum. What are these other things? Polkadot. What a dumb name. Gavin Wood got hacked for 93 million, another 30 and change million. What does he know? I mean, he did write Solidity, right? And, basically created the framework, the smart programming framework by which Ethereum functions. Now, did they all know that it wouldn't scale? They probably weren't even thinking of that. When Ethereum was created, listen, they were 2 steps from insolvency. You realize that Vitalik Buterin in 2016? Someone could correct me on that, but he actually went public and said, if we don't get an infusion of cash, Ethereum's done. Like, over with. And a lot of people don't remember that. Then there was the DAO hack. Ethereum went up. There was the DAO hack. Boom. Now you have Ethereum Classic. Is code law or does the community rule? And that was the fracture. Charles Hoskinson said, this can't scale. Among other things, this project is wrong. We can't get there from here. He leaves. 2015. Gavin Wood, 2016. I'm out. This thing can't scale. It can't meaningfully scale. So when we talk about Ethereum and we say, and Ethereum right now, by the way, $1,734. Don't let the price action and the underlying fundamentals confuse you. We have a whole equity market right now that is completely disconnected from reality. And you say, well, it's because they're forward pricing. The markets are a forward pricing mechanism. To a degree, that's true, right? To a degree, that's true. Why do I say that? Well, you're not buying something. You're not buying Bitcoin at 44,865 or buying Ethereum at $1,735 because you think that is the price. You're buying it because you think the price is going up, meaning you are your own forward pricing mechanism. There's the assumption when you buy this asset or some fraction of it that it is going to go up and improve the number of your chosen currency units on your balance sheet. Okay. So we're all forward pricing mechanisms, each one of us. That's another thing to consider. The price is always right? But you are valuing it. And in your estimation, if you're buying Ethereum at $1,735, you think it's worth at least $1,736. And I would say back out probably 50 basis points for trades. You think it's worth at least 50 basis points more than it's currently worth. And that would be a break even, right? Now, this is all happening underneath, deep buried in your psychology, right? But sometimes it's important to back out and start to look at all of these little fundamental reasons for why we make the decisions we make. Okay. And to that, I haven't done this recently, but there are some things to think about. So I'm going to go through some things. I'm going to talk about critical thinking, cognitive bias, game theory assumptions, and economics. It's going to take us like 4 minutes. And if you pay attention, it should start to change the way you look at your investing strategy and also the way you manage your risk assessment. These are 2 different things, right? Balancing your portfolio is one thing. Knowing what to own is another, right? Having belief in those assets. So let's talk about economic key points. If you're looking at the screen, for those of you on Theta TV, or actually Theta, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, whatever, wherever you are, you can notice it says economic key points. Focus on long run and on all groups. 2, economics can be subjected to vested interests. And the more you hear this, you're going to say, wow, that sounds a lot like game theory. Economics is pure game theory. All right. Not video game theory for those of you that are like, level 4, I beat the dragon with a hat. I beat the dragon. I got his hat. No, 3, long run effects are more complicated than short run effects. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Any big problem is a bunch of little problems all stacked together. So if you see something happening, the more complex those little problems are. It's like did you guys know that it's impossible, even with our computer technology right now, to predict the weather any more accurately than about 7 days out? And it's because there are so many particle interactions that occur inside a weather system, even inside a cloud, that the most advanced technology we have, it can only roughly predict weather patterns up to 7 days. And they say its true efficacy is like 3 days. Think about that. Think about how long we've had weathermen pointing at that stupid ass screen telling us what's going to happen. Well, he said, the weatherman's always wrong. No, our ability to define the sum over history of all these particle interactions is not accurate enough, right? Financial markets are no different. Okay, critical thinking skills that we all need. You have to be a critical thinker, right? 5 skills. 1, analysis. 2, communication. 3, open-mindedness. You know, when you guys hear me when you hear me talking about this absolutist thinking, quit being absolutist. There are no absolutes. I shouldn't even say that. There aren't very many absolutes. I got to unpack. See, we all have biases, right? There are very few things in life that are yes or no. There's lots of shades of gray. And if you're okay with that, you're going to be less likely to make decisions based on panic, greed, these overt reactions. You're going to be a little bit more comfortable. You're going to be able to weather the ups and the downs. You're going to look a little deeper. So analysis, communication, open-mindedness, problem solving, and creativity. You know why artists, it's odd, artists are uncharacteristically good at investing? Because they have a very creative problem solving mindset. Well, think what they're doing. They're taking their skill set in art, they're imagining something, and then they're bringing it into the real world. It's pretty fascinating, especially as we roll into these non-fungible tokens and the idea of tokenizing every real world item, imagined or otherwise, right? You could do, Charles Hoskinson talked about a really cool thing where you could take someone, let's say you took Elon Musk and he talked to an AI for about a month and he created a profile that you could communicate back and forth with, right? Something like Singularity Net. They're already working on it, by the way. Dan Gortzel is probably the smartest human on the planet. Anyway, and it would create this AI profile that has, 80, 85% of the net thinking kind of configuration of Elon Musk. And you fire off an NFT against it, and it's one of a kind. And now you have a little Elon Musk on your computer every time you want to go surf the web or do stuff, or in a smart home. I mean, anything conceptual or otherwise, you can apply a token to it. So don't just think this is for baseball cards, right? Or basketball cards. That's a very tiny, or even art is a very, very tiny part of this greater non-fungible token kind of phenomenon that I think we're going to see, which is yet another one of these fingers that extends out into the real world and starts tokenizing real world assets. Let's talk about cognitive bias. We all have it. Cognitive bias are the tendencies to think in certain ways that lead us to systematic deviations from a standard of rationality or sound judgment. Why do we make the decisions that we make? Right? Have you ever thought about that? We make a decision. Do you ever try to unpack, why did I make that decision? So you pull up to a stoplight. There's 2 cars in front of you, but then there's a bus in the right lane. Well, if you add up the cars, it would make sense. Well, I'll just go follow the bus because there's 1 bus, but there's 2 cars. But we all know buses make frequent stops. Buses can be slow. So maybe it makes more sense to be behind the 2 cars. But then what if in one of the cars, my grandmother, my poor insolvent, strung out on meth grandmother is texting, as she is known to do? Maybe it makes more sense to be behind the bus. Maybe it makes more sense to take a right, beat them by a few blocks, and get back on the road. I mean, all of these little things are happening under the surface. And if you start to unpack the reasons you bias your decisions, you're going to become a statistically better decision maker. I studied psychology and philosophy in school. I had a math background, but I studied psychology and philosophy, which is why I think I'm not so bought into the whole Keynesian nonsense. And I was a little bit more willing to say that I'm basically trading against humans. I don't have to be faster than the bear, right? When a bear enters the campsite, step number 1, tie your shoes. Step number 2, look for the fat kid. Why? Because you don't have to outrun the bear. You only have to outrun the fat kid. Tie your shoes, look for the fat kid. It seems silly. But if you regress the decision-making process back to its kind of very primal steps, we have these biases in our thinking. What is one of them? Well, clearly racism, right? It's a very obvious bias in our decision-making processes. There's many circles where if myself and Antonio and Corey and Alexander show up at a restaurant, depending on where we are, the maitre d' is going to talk to me. Why? Because they're racist. And it's easy then to say, okay, you piece of crap, what's going on? You know, how dare you? But then you have to even back it out. Where did their biases come from, right? I want to understand that decision-making process. They were raised in the Deep South. You can say, well, that's all they know. They're simple. It's not so simple. There are all these layers. There are all these colors. There are all these degrees, right? You see some guy walking down the street. Hey, how's it going? He just kind of grunts and walks by. You're like, man, screw that dude. What a jerk. You don't know that 5 minutes ago, he just got a phone call that his dad's on dialysis, right? We don't know. We don't know all the other, we don't have enough information to make a judgment. We make judgments far quicker than we should, far quicker than our ability to discern information based on those judgments. We all do it. I do it too. We make these inferences because when we lived in jungles and in trees, depending on whatever your decision is, how we got here, right? But for those of you that believe that science actually means something, then you could say that part of living in a very violent existence meant that you had to make these really quick snap judgments. And if you didn't do that, you maybe died, right? You don't have time to kind of go through the checklist and unpack your decision making. Am I making a biased decision when the bear is chasing you? You just have to run, right? Because it's you either go get dinner or you become dinner. But as we moved into these cultures and societies, it's very much less survival of the fittest, and it starts to become survival of the smartest. And I don't care where you're at. This is the beauty. This is one of the beauties of digital asset space. There is inclusion in this space. Forget people that have more money than you, less money than you, whatever. But you on a personal level, everybody here is included in this market. We weren't included in the .com era. We were just kind of on the sidelines. Oh, we could buy the IPO when everybody else is selling their shit onto the public because they've already made a 50X or a 30X. What does that look like? It looks like the ICO market. Same thing, right? People on the way, on the exit. What happened to the XRP pump the other day? Everybody was exiting when most of the compliant, let's face it, you kind of got chumped if you jumped in and they were selling against you. Same thing with an ICO, same thing with an IPO. You were late to the party, right? You're just looking for a greater fool. They've already exited. So we have all these biases in our decision making. But the cool thing about crypto is if we're able to unpack those things, we start making these decisions that are very statistically efficient, a little bit better, right? Just a little bit. I'll give you an example. You make about 100 decisions a day. 10 of those decisions may be somewhat life important. 3 of those decisions are life important every day, right? But you make like 100 decisions. If you can be just a little bit, a wee bit statistically above your peers, you don't have to be smarter than Tim Draper and Elon Musk. You just have to be a little bit smarter than your peers in the decisions that you make. So let's reduce that to math. Let's look at a payoff matrix, right? So you have 100 decisions, 10 of them are important. So let's count those 10 decisions. So we make 3,650 life important decisions a year. So if you can be 51% compared to your peers at 49%, and it's pretty easy to be 1 or 2% more informed than your peers. Why? Because people are playing games on their phone. People are checked out. And if you can unpack your own biases and you can try to make statistically better decisions just compared to your own behavior. That's all you got to do. You just got to beat yourself each day by a little bit. Then you've made about 1,800 decisions better than your peers a year. And let me tell you this, what that translates to in the investment space, if you make 1,850 better investment decisions than your peers, you fucking leave them. You leave them because what happens is you just melt up by not making dumb decisions, right? You don't have to outsmart anybody. You just have to unpack your own biases and start to realize when maybe I'm letting my emotions drive the car instead of, my hands and my reactions and my skill and my research, right? So again, I urge you to kind of consider these things. And it's not like today you're going to go make the flip, but you might think about it a little bit more than you did yesterday. These are iterative steps in your psychology. Assumptions in game theory, also in economics. There is the assumption of rationality and maximalization. It's assumed that players within a game are rational and strive to maximize their payoffs in the game. Everybody's trying to maximize payoffs, right? When you meet somebody, they're going to ask two questions. You say, hey, can you help me with this? They're going to say, A, can I do this thing? And B, what's in it for me? I mean, let's be honest. Can I do it? And what's in it for me? And so, it's important to unpack that we do that on a personal level. And so when you're looking, it's okay to ask that question. It doesn't make you any less of a person. It makes you an honest person. Be honest with yourself, right? They say the best censor? Look in the mirror and ask yourself questions and answer them. If you're not willing to do that, you're not willing to win. Everybody's not supposed to win. We can't all win. This isn't some weird, we don't live in a society where everyone has equal currency units and everything is fine because we are unique snowflakes to an extent, right? We have things that we like, things that we don't like. There's all sorts of reasons why our thinking could be flawed in some areas and not in others. You have to know what you don't know. You have to be open to your weaknesses. You have to be willing to accept that we are flawed creatures. You have to be willing to accept that you don't always make the best decisions. We make mistakes. We over or under analyze. Tyranny of choice, right? You're presented with all these choices. Let me give you an analogy for tyranny of choice. You're running through the woods. That one bear, he ate the fat kid. Now he's coming after you, right? So we're hauling ass through the woods, and we come up on a path on the left and a path on the right. You just pick one and you go. Okay, that's normal. Hey, I'm going left. I'm going right. Cool. But what happens when there's three paths? It's a fork. You stop for a second. Why? That one extra choice starts to overwhelm your thinking. What if there are 5 paths and on 2 of them there's skeletons hanging and one of them says cannibals and the other one says tiger? You're what the crap? And so what happens is you start getting analysis paralysis. You can't make a decision because you can't winnow down the decision tree quick enough. And while you're thinking about it, you get eaten. Well, if you had a plan before you got there, right? While the bear is eating fat kid, we'll call him fat kid Bob. I don't know any kids named Bob, but we'll call him Bobby. Fat Bobby. Fat Bobby just got ate. You got a few minutes to get your ass down that mountain and get back to your Jeep Wrangler. That sounds like a kind of a thing that a hiker being chased by a bear would have waiting for them. I'm running to the Jeep Wrangler. If I already know, I'm just going to go right. I'm just going to keep going right because somewhere down there, I'm likely to get to the parking lot. Then the paralysis doesn't overwhelm me. Analysis paralysis, right? The tyranny of choice, the indecision because I've been presented with all these options doesn't apply. So, yeah. I hope some of those things start to resonate with people because they're important in the decision-making process. Okay, let me see. Question. Please record this session. Theta crashes a lot. Yeah, it does. What I'm going to do, Theta, listen, they're still going. Theta is in beta. And because of that, obviously, we're going to maintain the other platforms. Twitch is great. YouTube is like, wah, wah. Twitter, Twitch, and stuff like that. Facebook. But I'm going to try to upload these videos back to Theta so that you can watch them at your own, at your leisure. They should also be available on YouTube. But I would rather you watch them and get paid to watch them hence theta. Okay, shameless plug. For those of you looking at coin, who have Coin Alert hooked up, nothing in this market has surprised you. All of this stuff has been signaled weeks ago. And I'm not going to tell you what Leroy, what Leroy and I have done, but it's been pretty cool. We've had a really good run, and it's just, again, you know, you're on your way into assets with information. You're on the way into the market with information, right? Without information, the market sells off. You panic. Oh my God, it's over. With information, you find out, oh, okay, an exchange had an outage. They had a DDoS attack. It's no big deal. When it opens back up, the volume comes back. Everything's fine. You know, again, assumptions in game theory. In economics, there's an assumption of rationality and maximalization. It is assumed that players within the game, all of the me's and you's, Fat Bobby, everybody else, it's assumed that all of these players within the game are rational and strive to maximize their payoffs in the game. You have to unpack the way you think. If you do this, it's more important than memorizing fucking white papers and all the other things that people do. And I'm not saying research is incredibly important. But if you can't unpack the way you make decisions, you got no business investing in anything, right? Get your house in order before you go outside and start throwing your money at stuff. I've said this a few times, but you know, we trade breaths, right? You have so many breaths, inhale, exhale per minute. We trade 60 minutes worth of breaths times however many hours you work for whoever you work for, if you still work for people, right? And you're trading away your life for currency units. Okay. Hopefully you're not in a Chinese prison where you're just waiting to become a non-compliant organ donor. But if you're trading away moments of your life for currency units and you want to redeploy those currency units to hopefully make your life better, there's only really 4 things that matter, right? Your income, your expenses, your assets, your liabilities. Pretty simple. What's coming in, what's going out. But what you have to do is you have to take a portion of those currency units and you have to put them somewhere that they're going to be, well, 1, they're not going to be inflated away by greater market forces. But 2, ideally, you would put them into places where they will grow in value to the point where now it makes less sense to trade your minutes away, and it makes more sense to pay attention to those buckets of currency units that you've been placing in areas where they hopefully have been increasing in value, hopefully in a compound way for years and years and years. It doesn't even have to be years and years. Most of you, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. In 2017, I sold 5 ounces of gold-ish, a little bit more. And by the way, Leroy was the one who forced me to go deep, deep. My brother was a freaking miner since 2011. I didn't listen to him because I know everything, right? And I did technically have some crypto back then. He's like, here's some of the crypto. I'm like, whatever. This is stupid. Nerd money. I was wrong, but I was willing to be wrong and kind of learn from my mistakes. So I come back in. This was actually 2016 when I put, I remember, it's 5 ounces of gold. It was like a little, no, it was actually, yeah, it was 5 ounces of gold, 5 eagles. It was about 72, 70, that price, 7,500, I think 7,500. It was 7,500 total. It was like, I don't know, 12 to 1,500 an ounce, something like that. Anyway, by the end of that year, we all know what happened through the end of 2016 and 2017. So we're buying Bitcoin in the 600s, right? We're buying XLM and XRP at less than a penny. Yeah, I mean, you guys can do the math. You can apply. My only assets that I owned were Bitcoin. I was buying Ethereum at $17. Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, XLM. I think I owned a privacy token of some kind. That was pretty stupid. And I did buy some Dash. That was also pretty stupid, but it had a good run. Anyway, you guys know math, right? And so it did, the portfolio did like I don't know, it did a ridiculous amount. And then I realized I've been far too casual about auditing my own thinking. I took this little pile of money, and because of these pools of investors coming in, just YOLOing into the market before it was even cool to say YOLO, I've experienced this wealth effect. What am I going to do? Just give it back? then I haven't done anything. I just got a taste of the good stuff. So I decided to go back and rewind and relearn the entire crypto space. I reread, which I had read before 2014. We were building our first application when we all lived in Milpitas in the Bay. Leroy and had all of us together. We were in the hacker house, and we were already at a hackathon. We built a crypto exchange in 2014. It didn't go anywhere because 4 days later, MT Gox. And we were like, what? But I went back and I rewired my thinking. I think we all did. And we started saying we need to be able to explain why these things are doing what they're doing, why these assets are appreciating the way they are, so that we can keep moving forward without giving it all back. People love to give it all back. And so, yeah, so that's what forced us to be a little bit smarter about what we were doing. And that's why we succeeded in 18 and 19 and 20. Everybody succeeded in 20, but 18 and 19, if you guys recall, was really tough. It made mice out of men. It decimated people's belief in digital assets and all this. And even though your rational mind said this has to happen, there's no other way. It's completely obvious what's going to happen. Everybody had doubts. And so I just started arbitrage trading because why not, right? I was like, if I can just keep scraping a little bit more Bitcoin and a little bit more Bitcoin, if I'm not completely cryptarded, then this thing's going to rocket and I'll be fine. I just have to survive. And, fast forward a few commas later and, life's pretty good. But no one's missed it. This is still the very beginning of all of this. Alex brings up, we talk about this. Are we in the first inning, the second inning? Alex says, we don't even have the rules yet. We have some of the rules, but there's still, the ink is still wet on the playbook. I don't think the game is really started. You could argue that maybe with Michael Saylor, Stanley Druckenmiller, Nouriel Rubini turning the corner, Paul Tudor Jones, Elon Musk through Tesla. By the way, this is an aside. You guys know that the Tesla news was about 3 weeks early, right? Tesla wasn't going to press release that. What happened is the Chinese government put out a report that they are doing some very deep research into the safety of Tesla products in China. There's been a lot of problems, like a lot of problems. And so when the news came out, Tesla jumped weeks ahead and press release the 1.5 billion in Bitcoin. And guess what? No one even talked about the safety issues in China. Pretty interesting, right? Things are not always what they seem. And you want to unpack as much data. You just want to have data, right? I think that's important for everyone. Okay, I want to talk just a bit about social networks. First of all, if you haven't seen the discussion between Dan Gortzel and Charles Hoskinson on what a decentralized blockchain social network would look like, you need to go listen to that. You can just look it up. Matter of fact, you can go to CoinAlert, not CoinAlert, but you can go to cryptoandcoffee.tv, go to the news section on the left. Matter of fact, I'll show you. So there's a news section you can go to. Boop. When you're on the main page, I'm going to go home just to show you. This is why people just look at it and they're like, oh, it's a blue picture. No, it's not a blue picture. If you look to the left, it says home, the market, ICOs. We have an ICO list, crypto news, bookshelf, and resources. Go to the market or news, crypto news, and you can find all this stuff. We're indexing everything. So anyway, for those of you that want to do research, cryptoandcoffee.tv, super dope. Okay. And we have everything, like literally every site, CoinGecko, Santiment, Lunar Crush, CoinMarketCap. Like we have everything plugged in and we're just indexing, just chunk. We're just churning out data. So there. Well, in this discussion between Dan Gortzel and Charles Hoskinson, he brought up three interesting things. Moderation, right? The ability to moderate. For instance, someone has a message that says, I hate you. Someone else has a message that says, I'm coming to murder you. Well, those are two different statements. And so it might make sense to moderate at some degree based on the net effect of the danger of certain statements. And no one wants to be the moderator, right? But we need moderation. We can't have everything can't be open, right? Just because you have a decentralized platform doesn't mean that, you know, violent and dangerous and harmful content should just be allowed, right? So you need some level of moderation. And it might be reasonable to let some kind of AI processes take place. So you have basically this underlayer of machine learning. And then above that, you have swarm AI, all these little AI bots. And they're constantly looking and curating and weighing data and weighing information and weighing sentiment to get a net effect of what's fair, unfair, good, bad. And in a much more civil way, it could add degrees of moderation to statements. So you need moderation, okay? Next, you need some incentive mechanism so that people not only post content, but post contrarian content, again, in a safe way that doesn't have to be moderated. And that incentive would be a token, right, of some kind. And you could have a variety of tokens for different types of things, but mostly it would be a governance token. And fees would be derived from information being posted. And you could imagine that if you post something and it affects a lot of people, you could get compensated for that, a lot like the Steam model. But the problem with the Steam model is there was too much bleed out, where too many of the tokens left the exchange. They didn't stay in the exchange. This is Dan Larimer. He can do everything 2/3 of the way. He just can't ever finish. By the way, he's the guy that started EOS and summarily left, by the way. So we have moderation, and that would probably be achieved by, again, a layer of machine learning with swarm AI on top of that. And again, look up AGI, SingularityNet, and Dan Gortzel if you want to learn more about swarm AI and what that means. And then you need an incentive model, incentivized with a token of some kind, very likely. You want to incentivize good behavior. You want to incentivize contribution. You want to incentivize curation, okay? And then you need some function where a treasury gets developed so that there can be developmental funds, so that you have a kind of, you know, excited, incentivized developer community for the greater good of the platform. So moderation, incentives, and some treasury function. And this was a really interesting discussion between Ben and Charles. And I realized at that point that was an interesting moment. I listened to that thing about a week ago, and I realized I'm stupid, or at least idiotic, when it comes to a full understanding of AI. Now, I can go out and get that information. So I've set upon a mission to go and learn more about compartmentalized AI, digital superintelligence, artificial intelligence in small circumstances, swarm AI. I want to understand the space. I think it will make a meaningful difference in the future. I think all exchanges eventually get decentralized, and some level of artificial intelligence is going to have to manage that if we intend to disintermediate humans from these processes. And so the partnership, by the way, between AGI and Cardano is way, way bigger than people realize, in my opinion. In my opinion, people are not valuing that relationship correctly. They might be the two smartest humans on the earth. There's certainly maybe some of the two most capable people of solving this problem, and it's a huge problem. Social media's incentives are awful. They incentivize really perverse, really mean-spirited behavior and just bad human behavior in general. They incentivize a zombie culture that YOLOs into everything, where research and real facts and real evidence are contended. We've gotten to a point in our society where people actually argue over the truth. They actually argue over facts, provable facts, to the point where people go, wait a minute, that's a deep fake. I'm like, what do you mean it's a deep fake? You're literally in the car next to me. Like, yeah, but this is a deep fake. Bitch, this isn't a deep fake. You're literally right next to me in the car. You have a seatbelt on. Am I? Oh. Right? And that maybe that gets into a discussion of objective reality, or what represents a construct. Another time, another place, right? Maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow. But for now, I thought I would throw that your way. Definitely, I do a disservice. So go listen to the talk between Ben Gortzel and Charles Hoskinson. Let me go down the prices. Let's finish it out with some price talk. For those of you on Clubhouse, the show starts here in about 3 minutes. because you guys have just been listening to me drone on like a half-tard, but we will actually get the discussion going. We're going to bring people up. We're going to have you guys talk. I would love to answer or at least help Antonio, Alexander, and anybody who wants to come up. I'd love to get the discussion going. For those of you on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Twilio, and Theta, sorry, man, but we're going to cut this one short. So if you have an iOS device, come on over to Clubhouse. If you don't, I apologize. Check out Coin Alert if you want to front run the markets. If you want to have information dumped into your box every day. Real quick, Cardano is at 86 cents. Holy F. It's up 28% on the day, 101% on the week, 243% on the 30-day. And if I show you guys the 1-year chart, you guys will lose your fucking lunch. So I'm not going to. All I'm saying is, if you bet on the jockey, this is a project you want to look at. Am I discounting other projects? Absolutely not. There's a lot of really good projects. There's a lot of really smart people. I don't think there's a lot of really smart people with really good projects that have better vision than Cardano, but there are. And I'm not only investing in Cardano, which I am. There are plenty of assets. Yeah. Most of you that are early Cardano, you bet on the jockey. You realize they were behind schedule and they decided to let science run and dictate the pace of their rollout. They are doing that. And I would just make sure that nothing has happened yet. Let me put it that way. If you think this is it for Cardano, you ain't seen nothing. I also say you ain't seen nothing from DOT, because DOT is going to be wildly successful. Polkadot, terrible marketing, cool project, solving a problem in a completely different way. Don't ignore it. Of course, Bitcoin is going to do fine. Ethereum is a great trade, in my opinion. XLM, they're getting a little bit of steam. They're getting a little bit of a tailwind. So don't ignore XLM. Atom, Cosmos. It's not on most people's radar. I think it should be. Okay. It's up 0.24. It's up a quarter. It's up 62% on the week, 171% on the 30-day. It's not nothing. Okay. Theta. Well, you tried out Theta TV. Some of you liked it. Some of you didn't like it. Theta's in beta. They'll get it figured out. They're launching through the new Samsung devices. I'm interested to see what that means for uptake. They got some things they need to work on. Obviously, they got to iron out some flips and some faux pas in that platform, but they'll get there. Neo. Why do I like Neo and VeChain? Because I like having exposure to China, and I don't know any other way to get it. And Neo and VeChain are that exposure. I also like what VeChain is doing. Neo is up 7% on the day, 35, almost 36 on the week, 47 on the month. VeChain, it's down 4.5% on the day, up 18% on the week, up 57% on the month. You have Graph Token and Near. We're going to finish it out. They're both Coinbase Ventures. Okay. And while the market cap, I've been told, is being reported wrong on Near, it's much higher. Pay attention to Near. Pay attention to Near protocol. It looks like 1inch is coming over. It looks like MakerDAO is coming over, and a few other projects. It's a Coinbase venture, and it's not on Coinbase. You guys know what that means. It means it's very likely that it will end up on Coinbase. And if other Coinbase venture projects are porting over from Ethereum, exiting Ethereum to use Near, guess what? I think it makes sense to look at getting some exposure to that. The cool thing about the crypto space, it's a lot of stuff going on. Don't frustrate yourself if you don't get it right now. It's okay to be new. It's okay to be inexperienced. It's okay for this to be very difficult and frustrating. Just calm down, relax, go through the top 10, go to cryptoandcoffee.tv, do your research, learn about these things. If you can explain it to grandma, you've earned the right to own it. Then you break your portfolio down into $1. You say, of this $1, where am I going to spend this $1? I'm going to put 60 cents into Bitcoin. I'm going to put 20 cents into Cardano. I'm going to put 12 cents into Ethereum, 8 cents, probably 15 cents into DOT. You see what I'm saying? You can build your portfolio on percentages. You can own the whole goddamn space. You don't have to just choose one. Quit being tribal. Quit being absolutist. And finally, you guys know what I'm going to say. Don't do anything my drunk, insolvent grandmother wouldn't do. And she's on roofies. She's on roofies again. You know what that means. She's going to get really touchy-feely. I'm out.
Hey, this is the Profit with Nick Black. It's time to chit chat. You know nothing about blockchain. We here to fix that. You want the news on them new stocks? This where you get that. So go and grab you a nice chair. It's time to sit back and talk to Profit. Hey, hey, you talking to the Profit? Hey, hey. We talking condos and nice clothes and driving Lambos. I remember them night codes, we couldn't stand those. We tried to drive on them house roads, but had to stay low. Now there's solutions to hard bills we couldn't pay for. I talked to Profit to get some profit, we couldn't change the top. If it's a stock and I need a cop it, I wait for him to drop it. Ain't no option, let's get it poppin'. We chillin' in the trap. I need some crypto, put it in my pocket. By any means I rock. This is the Profit with Nick Black. It's time to chit chat. You know nothing about blockchain, we here to fix that. You want the news on them new stocks, this where you get that. So go and grab you a nice chair. It's time to sit back and talk to Profit. Hey, hey, you talking to the Profit?
It's all fake news. It's funny stuff. It didn't happen.
You talking to the Profit?